A burst pipe? A dead water heater? The AC calling it quits. Who do you call? HomeServe is an easy way to handle unexpected home repairs, with plans covering stuff basic homeowners insurance usually won't. Instead of scrambling for a contractor, you make one call to get the repair process started. Join the millions of customers who trust HomeServe right now. Go to homeserve.com/podcast for 50% less your first year. That's homeserve.com/podcast. Savings compared to renewal price. Void in Florida.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. Before dawn on May 26, 1637, a force of English colonists and indigenous allies surrounded a fortified Pequot village on the banks of the Mystic River in Connecticut. Inside were several hundred Pequot people, mostly women, children, the elderly. Most of the Pequot warriors were elsewhere that night. The English commander, a man named John Mason, gave an order: burn it all. Within an hour, the village was an inferno. Colonists who tried to escape the flames were cut down at the palisade walls. By the time the sun came up, somewhere between 400 and 700 Pequot people were dead. It was, by some measures, the deadliest single event of the entire colonial period in New England. And one of the colonists who witnessed it called it, without apparent irony, a wonderful work of God. Our history brief today covers some recent history news. A quick word from our sponsors.
Summer is here. At Orderly Meds, we know this time is a reminder that life is full of new beginnings. Whether you're celebrating the nice weather, starting a new chapter, planning a vacation, or simply looking ahead to what's next, this season can be the perfect time to invest in yourself and your health. If you've struggled with weight loss and are curious about GLP-1 medications, Orderly Meds can help you learn about your options. Through a simple virtual process, you can connect with licensed medical professionals who can determine whether treatment may be appropriate for you. Getting started is fast, convenient, and happens online from the comfort of home. This summer, consider a new approach to feeling your best. Visit orderlymeds.com/podcast to learn more. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. orderlymeds.com/podcast. Because every new season is an opportunity to take the next step forward. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
This day in history. On July 7, 1898, the United States formally annexed Hawaii, expanding American influence across the Pacific and setting the stage for Hawaii's eventual statehood. On July 7, 2005, a series of coordinated terrorist bombings struck London's public transportation system, killing 52 people and injuring hundreds more in the deadliest attack on the city since World War II. Story of the day. The Pequot were a powerful people who controlled territory across what is now southeastern Connecticut. By the early 1630s, they dominated the regional wampum trade, the shell beads that functioned as both currency and diplomatic currency across indigenous New England. They were not a marginal people on the edge of colonial settlement. They were a major regional power, and that was precisely the problem. English colonization in Connecticut in the 1630s was expanding fast. Settlers from Massachusetts Bay were pushing into the Connecticut River Valley. Trade rivalries were intensifying, land disputes were multiplying, and the Pequot stood between the English and the kind of regional dominance that the colonists wanted. The spark, as these things often go, was murder, on both sides actually, claimed and counterclaimed, in a cycle of violence that had been escalating for years. An English trader named John Stone was killed in 1634, allegedly by Pequot or Pequot allied raiders. Tensions simmered for 2 years. Then, in July of 1636, another English trader, John Oldham, was killed near Block Island, this time by Narragansett allied raiders, though the English blamed the Pequot regardless. The response was disproportionate even by the standards of the era. Massachusetts Bay sent a punitive expedition under John Endicott that summer, burning Pequot villages and crops on Block Island and along the Connecticut coast. The Pequot retaliated. By the spring of 1637, full scale war had broken out between the Pequot and the English colonies of Massachusetts Bay, Plymouth, and Connecticut. What made the war different and what made Mystic possible was the alliance the English had built. The Pequot had enemies of their own, the Narragansett and the Mohegan, rival people who had their own grievances with Pequot dominance over regional trade, saw an opportunity in the English conflict. Mohegan leader allied his forces with the colonists. So did segments of the Narragansett. This is a detail that gets flattened or simplified in many versions of this story. Mystic was not simply colonists against indigenous people. It was a colonial war fought within an existing web of indigenous political rivalries that the English exploited with considerable skill. Without a Mohegan and Narragansett support, as guides, as warriors, as local knowledge of the terrain, the attack on Mystic would not have been possible. On the night of May 25th, 1637, John Mason led a combined force of roughly 90 English colonists and several hundred Narragansett and Mohegan allies toward the fortified Pequot village at Mystic. The original plan was reportedly to attack at dawn and engage the Pequot in open combat. What happened instead was something else. The English forces breached the palisade, set the wigwams inside ablaze, and then formed a perimeter around the burning village. Anyone who tried to escape the fire was killed at the wall. Mason's own account, written afterward without apparent shame, described the slaughter in the language of righteous violence. He described setting fire to the wigwams and the screaming of those trapped inside. He framed the entire massacre as divine providence. Some of the Narragansett allies who had joined the expedition were reportedly horrified by what they witnessed, a level of indiscriminate violence against women and children that exceeded the norms of warfare even in a brutal era of indigenous conflict. Even among warriors from a culture the English considered savage, the scale and the targets of the massacre at Mystic were shocking. The Pequot War effectively ended the Pequot as an independent political and military power in New England. Survivors were hunted throughout the summer of 1637, and many of them were killed. Many others were captured and then sold into slavery, sent to Bermuda, to the Caribbean, distributed among the English colonists and their native allies as captives and servants. The Treaty of Hartford of 1638 formally dissolved the Pequot as a political entity. The very name Pequot was banned from official use. The territory was divided among the colonists, the Mohegan, and the Narragansett. For all practical colonial purposes, the Pequot people had been erased from the map. They were not erased from existence, however. Pequot communities survived, in diminished numbers, under altered names, absorbed into other communities, but persisting through nearly 4 centuries of dispossession, discrimination, and willful historical forgetting. In the 20th century, two federally recognized Pequot tribal nations re-emerged into public visibility, reclaiming land, reclaiming sovereignty, and reclaiming a name the colonial government had once tried to erase entirely. A Pequot Museum and Research Center opened in 1998 near the site of the ancestral homeland. It stands today as one of the most significant indigenous-run historical institutions in North America. It tells the story that the colonists never intended anyone to remember accurately. For most of the American history, the Mystic Massacre was not taught as a massacre at all. It was actually taught, when it was taught, as a victory, a triumph over a dangerous enemy. The word massacre itself only entered common usage around this event relatively late, a quiet acknowledgement centuries after the fact that something had happened at Mystic that did not fit comfortably into the story colonial New England told about itself. John Mason has a statue. For decades, it stood in Mystic, Connecticut, near the site of the massacre itself before being relocated in 1996 amid growing recognition of what it actually commemorated. The history did not change. The willingness to look at it honestly did. The History Brief. Today, on some history news, we're heading to one of the most famous archaeological landscapes on Earth. I'm talking about Stonehenge. But this story isn't about the giant stones that attract millions of visitors. It's about what may have come before them. According to recent reporting, archaeologists working just a few miles from Stonehenge have uncovered evidence of a much older wooden monument that appears to have been aligned with the summer and winter solstices, roughly 500 years before Stonehenge's iconic stone circle was constructed. The discovery was made near the village of Bulford in Wiltshire, England. While excavating a site ahead of construction work, archaeologists identified two large post holes that once held massive wooden poles. Although the timber itself has long since decayed, the holes remained, and their placement told an extraordinary story. When researchers analyzed the site, they found the two posts were carefully aligned with the midsummer sunrise and midwinter sunset, the same solar events famously associated with Stonehenge today. Radiocarbon dating suggests the monument was erected around 3000 to 2950 BCE, making it centuries older than the great sarsen stones that most people think of when they picture Stonehenge. In other words, people in this landscape were marking the movements of the sun long before Stonehenge reached its final form. For years, archaeologists have understood that Stonehenge wasn't built all at once. It evolved over centuries through multiple construction phases. But this newly identified monument suggests that the traditions and beliefs that eventually produced Stonehenge may have been developing even earlier than previously thought. And the site, I should mention, yielded more than just post holes. Researchers uncovered nearly 50 pits containing pottery, animal bones, charcoal, and stone tools. These finds suggest that the area may have hosted gatherings, feasts, and ceremonies tied to seasonal events. Some experts believe people may have assembled there to celebrate the solstices, much as visitors continue to do at Stonehenge today. One intriguing find was a rare circular flint knife. Archaeologists speculate that its shape may have symbolized the sun, further strengthening the connection between the site and solar worship or seasonal rituals. It's easy to imagine Stonehenge appearing suddenly as a unique monument, but discoveries like this one suggest something different: a long tradition of observation, experimentation, and ceremonial activity stretching back for generations. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and for helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different videos and series that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.